Uh, okay. Is it over to me? Is that what you're saying, Remy?
Uh, Boy, is it a roll call first? No, call to order first.
Call,
That's
call
you.
to order. All right. So I will call the meeting to order. Welcome to the April 6th, 2023 electronic meeting of the Greenbelt Advisory Commission. This meeting is being held electronically. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. Please note that if you are watching this meeting live online, there is a 30-second delay. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 1-877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID number 941-0420-8673. Again, that number to call is 1-877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID number 941-0420-8673. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city website and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watch-CTN. Please note that if you do call in for public comment, you must enter *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. Thank you, and we'll do roll call, and I can kick that off. So Commissioner Chairperson Riggs, I am here attending from my home in Ann Arbor. Commissioner Bloomer.
I'm here attending from my home in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Hello. Commissioner Jason Boggs.
I am here attending from my home in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Schuler. Try again before well done. Councilperson Radina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Okay. Councilperson Armstrong. You're on mute, but we can see you.
Here in Ann Arbor, sorry.
Thank you. Councilperson Gordon. Also on mute, Robert.
That's better. Hi, I'm in Quartzsite, Arizona on a 4G signal.
So,
Airplane. Wow.
great. Yeah. And we do Commissioner Laramie. Is Kate official?
Here attending from my home in Ann Arbor.
Welcome. Great. We have a quorum. And then next up is approval of the agenda from our previous meeting, or I'm sorry. Whoa, too much time on the highway today. Approval of the agenda for today. Does someone want to make the motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Bloomer, and a support.
I'll move to support.
Okay, thank you, Kate. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. Okay, the agenda is approved. And approval of the minutes from March 2nd, 2023. Those were provided to us as a link in the agenda for this meeting. And I would suggest that we just take a minute or two just to take a look at those and see if we have any questions or corrections on those. Would anyone like more time? Okay. All right. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Dee? Is there a second? Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Then our next item is public commentary. I think I may have skipped this last time. So we're holding public comment. That will be via telephone only. So please note that if you're watching this meeting live online, there's a 30-second delay. Do we have anybody waiting to speak for public comment?
No.
It doesn't appear so.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. Okay, well, there'll be another opportunity later. So moving on then to new business and a staff report.
All right. Going to open the thing. All right. Okay. So, just wanted to start off with this lovely image because we had to update it for 2023 recently for some presentations. So, just a nice little look at all of the work that's been done since 2000 with a reasonable margin of error for lack of knowing some of the acquisition years of some properties around here. But just a wonderful, wonderful image, both evident of all of the work that all of the preservation programs have done around here and all of the land that is still unprotected as well. And these are all publicly protected and as well as conservation easements are on this map. So it's a little feel-good thing there. We use this image all the time, or this sort of comparison in presentations across the county. The Greenbelt does, the county does. So nice. So last month, we told you that Remy and I the Greenbelt was invited to an ASEP Ale Summit hosted by the National Agricultural Land Network and American Farmland Trust to discuss very specifically USDA NRCS's ASEP Ale grant program that the Greenbelt and everybody around here has used extensively in the last several years. It used to be FRPP before it was ASEP Ale. And they host the summit every few years with governments and with nonprofits on a different year. And so we went just the week after the last GAC meeting and see if you can spot us in that group there. We were one of two cities that were there, the other one being Lexington, Kentucky. Lots of state people, North Carolina, Maine, California, all over the place were there. And we came out of it. We were able to give a lot of good feedback about how ASEP Ale could be improved, or challenges that we face with it, and things that work well as well. And we came out of it with some action items for ourselves that we may be working on in the next year. So great time. And then we had a couple of presentations this month. The Parks Advisory Commission invited the Greenbelt to come and speak on the Greenbelt and the Open Space and Parkland Preservation Program. And so Remy did that one. As far as I know, it was well received. And then the following day, I presented for the Greenbelt for the Community Academy, which the Greenbelt did last year as well. And the Community Academy, if you don't know, not that I know much about it, but it is a program that residents can sign up for to learn more about the city of Ann Arbor government and how it works. So it was a particular group of people that were part of that program, though it's posted online as well. And then the last staff report that will lead us into introductions is that we have a new GAC member, Kate Laramie. Welcome. So I'd like for everyone to go around, if it's okay, Elizabeth, to move on to the next item there, and say, introduce yourselves, give a little bit of background.
Yeah, that's a
Elizabeth,
great
you
idea,
would start.
Rosie.
Yeah, cool.
Sure, I can start. I'll keep it brief. So Kate, welcome. Great to have you on the GAC. I'm trying, GAC, not GAC. So we've met before. I have been on the Greenbelt Commission for about 3 years. Just hit 3 years, and it's really a great experience. Terrific staff leadership and support, and good group of commissioners as well. And I've spent a lot of my time in the past working locally and regionally on watershed and landscape issues. And I currently am an energy and environment consultant with a firm that's based in Lansing, but that works across the Great Lakes. Yeah, and
Elizabeth, that was
Ann Arbor.
perfect. I would only add if each of you could mention, if you know it offhand, what your appointment to the Greenbelt Advisory Commission, what representative you cover, if you're a public at large,
Thank
environment
you.
or conservation group, farmer representative, etc. If you are sure of it, please share. If not, ask me and I'll pull it up right now and clarify.
That's a great point, Remy. Yep, and I'll just finish by saying that I'm a public at large representative. I'm going to toss this over to Jason for the next one.
Hi, Kate. Good to meet you. I'm Jason Boggs. I'm a representative for the real estate development side of things. My background is in real estate, but I have past history in urban planning and just interest in affordable housing and farm systems and all the things. So it makes for a good good background, or certainly keeps me interested. So I've been also, I think, about 3 years. Is that right? That seems the last 3 years are a blur. So welcome.
That
Welcome
enjoyable.
to the group. Yes, it has nothing to do with the COVID time warp.
Thanks, Jason. How about Dee? Do you want to introduce yourself next? Oh, unmute, please.
Technology. Wow. Okay. Hi, Kate. Welcome. I am, I think, another at-large person. Is that right, Remy? I mean, there's a lot of things, voids I could fill, but I think that's what I am.
Yeah.
And I've served, or I've certainly worked with Huron River Watershed Council, but not for pay, just for the sheer joy of working with the lovely people there. My employment was with NAP as the field ornithologist for about 17 years. And I retired and I got to do what I still did for NAP for a long time and pursue my hobby. And I have also served on the very beginning of the Scioto Township Land Preservation Commission until I moved to Ann Arbor. And I'm really just delighted to maybe have been here for about 2 years, I think. So.
Thanks, Dee. Let's go, Robert, if you would go next, and then Roseanne on deck. Oh, Robert, can you unmute?
There we go. This is my third go around on the Greenbelt Commission. Originally, I was with the state's lobbyist for the Sierra Club. That's changed dramatically because, well, for reasons I don't have to get into, I don't do that anymore. So I am now living in California 5 months of the year, and in Ann Arbor 7 months of the year. And then we are coming back to town the first week of May.
And what type of position are you filling on the commission?
Originally it was a local environmental group, but nowadays it's really just at large.
Thank you.
Hi, Kate. I'm Roseanne Bloomer, and I'm the farm representative. My husband and I manage 2 farms, and I spent my professional life with the various positions with the farm credit system. I've been involved in the Legacy Land Conservancy. I've served on their board, and we have put a conservation easement through the Greenbelt on our farm here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you, Roseanne. Let's go to Travis and then Sheila on deck.
Hi, Kate. I am Councilmember Travis Redina. I represent the 3rd Ward. I'm obviously the council liaison here to the commission, and then I also serve on the Parks Advisory Commission. So there's kind of a nice collaboration there.
And Sheila, are you able to introduce yourself to Kate? Okay. All right. Sheila? No. Maybe later. Kate? Can we turn the tables now and share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, hello everyone. It's so nice to meet you all. Sheila was actually a professor of mine at the School for Environment and Sustainability, so no introduction needed in this context. Hi, Sheila, if you can hear us. My name is Kate Laramie. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm the Watershed Ecology Associate at the Huron River Watershed Council. I've been with HRWC since February 1st of 2020, so 3 full years, but I'm still sort of in catch-up, get to know people mode, because, a year and a half of my first time at the Watershed Council was totally remote and at home. So it was an interesting time to start a new position. But at HRWC, I work really closely with Chris Olson on our Natural Areas Protection Program. So very familiar with, kind of our end of the natural areas, land assessment, protection for, source water quality, source water protection, that kind of work. I have a Master's of Science in Ecosystem Science and Management from the University of Michigan School of Environment and Sustainability. Sorry, they've changed their name a few times now. Graduated in 2021 with my master's degree. So just a little bit more background about me as a person. I grew up in Saline Township on 10 acres in farm country. So all of these topics are close to my heart, and I'm really pleased to be here, as I think my official title is one of the environmental group representatives. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks. Looking forward to getting to know you better. And I think Sheila might be available now.
Yes, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties, but I will switch over to my computer in a bit. As Kate said, she knows me very well, so I don't know that I need to introduce myself for her, but I believe I'm the biologist. That's my role in GAC.
Great. Thanks. Am I turning this back to you, Rosie or Remy, for budget review?
Yes. And I know we didn't get to do introductions when Travis joined either, so it's nice to have everybody here in the meeting, and hopefully that was just nice for everybody. Alrighty, back to the thing. So the just budget review really is the last thing here, and our finances haven't changed at all since last time. We haven't done anything, but so this is the same as last month, but I thought I'd give a quick overview for Kate to kind of explain what we look at in open session here. So we show here the projects that have been approved by City Council, which right now is 2 partnerships with Webster Township. So they are leading the conservation easements, and they requested money from the Greenbelt to aid with that acquisition. And so those 2 were approved by GAC and then by council. This crossed off one here was one that was in the works for a long time, but it has been withdrawn essentially. So that has been removed from our budget. And then the next line there, total, is the total number of acres that have been approved, that are in the works. The total project, or the total fair market value, and then the total amount that the Greenbelt is committing, $135,000. And then we have the fund balance, which is what's sitting there in the the fund for us to use, and then minus what has been committed via city council. And then we don't have any due diligence at the moment because those are associated with Greenbelt-led projects. And then GAC pipeline of potential projects is related to the closed session budget. So things that have yet to be approved by city council. We bring that total number here and subtract that from the fund balance. And then we have the actual, or I guess the functional fund balance minus all of our commitments. So just wanted to show that. So we've got some money to work with right now. And that's it for budget review. Oh yeah, Remy.
No, just that last line item, because almost all of the projects, whether it be partnership through a financial request from a local partner agency, or if it's a city-led project, in almost all cases, projects are multi-year, and revenue is year to year. We are comfortable over subscribing or over committing financially up to about $1 million over commitment because of that staggered closing timeline for whether it be city-led or township-led or other partner projects. We will, in all likelihood, have a very a sufficient fund balance to make good on those commitments with the incoming annual revenue, even if we oversubscribe 1 year. We will work through that commitment over the course of multiple years because the projects go on for so long, as you'll get to know.
Thanks, Rosie. I don't think there are any other questions from folks. So, all right, back to the next step of Buy, Protect, Sell. Part of a series.
Very much so. We're in the midst of a busy year of Buy, Protect, Sell conversations. So the quickest way to recap this is to say last meeting we discussed what exactly is recap on what is affordable farmland access, and then what is a Buy, Protect, Sell transaction framework, how do they interrelate, and then how does our program, the Greenbelt program, identify opportunities within those spaces to advance those causes or utilize those innovations. So where we ended up was setting a timeline for, we all have agreed and City Council has ratified that this framework has value and adds value to our program by utilizing this innovation in our conservation space to not just fulfill our primary goals of resource conservation, but amplify the benefits by taking control of the title to a property and actually multiplying benefits by creating affordable land access opportunities for farmers in our community. So what we did is lay out 2 timelines. So the top timeline is the buy timeline for parcels. The bottom timeline is the sell timeline. What we're focused on today is the sell timeline. We wanted to provide an update or have a conversation about the RFP's criteria and weights. So that's what was sent out by Rosie earlier this week. The week's a blur. I think it was this week. But effectively, these are what would be plugged into an RFP issued by the city for any particular parcel that we are to acquire through our Buy, Protect, Sell framework. So when the city identifies a priority, vulnerable conservation priority parcel within the Greenbelt, we will explore the opportunity to utilize buy, protect, sell as an acquisition framework. And then once it's acquired, it would then run through this. What we're talking here is vetting the RFP's criteria and weights and developing a parcel specific RFP. So I believe we can move to the next slide. I want to touch on the fundamental core value of this framework and how it came about. If you look at the Greenbelt buy, protect, sell policy, our buy, protect, sell guidance, and then our template RFP, you'll find a consistent thread throughout those documents that emphasizes that the scarcity of affordable farmland threatens the future viability of agriculture in the Greenbelt district. That is the primary issue that this work and utilizing this acquisition model is trying to address. The scarcity of affordable farmland in the Greenbelt district threatens the future viability of agriculture in our community. So the guidance, again, prompts one to think that the rationale behind this is to protect those vulnerable and priority conservation parcels that are out there. We want to create proactively affordable farmland purchasing opportunities for farmers. We want to foster and support the kind of agriculture that we want to see in our community, and give opportunities for those types of businesses to thrive locally. And then we want to protect farmland and agricultural economic viability in our area by enhancing the diversity of agricultural enterprises in our locale. So with that basis in mind, the city council, GAC, deemed that it was in the interest of the Greenbelt program to utilize buy, protect, sell to purchase priority parcels. And so we did that. Now the city has purchased the Maisel Farm. This is a 54-acre piece of farmland in Northfield Township off of Noller Road. And now we are taking this parcel through the process of developing an RFP so we can go and sell that property to a land insecure farmer and do it through an RFP process. Next slide. So again, this buy, protect, sell isn't a program. It's not a spin-off of the Greenbelt. It is a function of the Greenbelt, as all our acquisition work is, but it is an innovative acquisition framework that allows or addresses farmland ownership access opportunities for land insecure farmers. So we are fulfilling the Greenbelt's primary objective of resource conservation while providing those secondary benefits of a pathway to farmland ownership for small farmers and for farmers that are land insecure. So when we take small farmers as a term and land insecure farmers as a term, this is how we convert it to an eligibility criteria. So what you were all sent by Rosie earlier this week, we've already had a chance to incorporate some of your feedback. And so I want to give you all a few minutes to read through these or reflect on them. I'm actually going to run through them now. So what Rosie and I reworked based on your feedback and what was sent prior is the to be eligible for the buy, protect, sell Maisel RFP. These are our draft eligibility criteria. So 1, the applicant must not already own farmland or otherwise demonstrate some form of land insecurity or produce less than $250,000 gross farm income per year. That $250,000 threshold is the definition of, I believe, USDA definition of small farmer. So we are leveraging other larger entities definitions here. You'll see this throughout. the applicant must have a taxable income of less than 3 times the median household income for Washtenaw County. That puts that very close to that gross farm income threshold, about as close as you get, instead of making a 2 decimal carryover on the multiplication factor. So the applicant must not be a legal entity comprised of more than 25 full-time people or employees. So an LLC would not have more than 25 members, or a cooperative would not have more than 25 members. That would be the threshold for applying to our RFP. Again, trying to keep it trending toward the small definition. The applicant would need to provide evidence that for at least 2 years, at an average of 20 plus hours per week in the last 10 years, they have materially or substantially participated in the operation of any farm, or they have another equivalent qualifying combination of agricultural training, education, and/or experience. What this criteria is leaning heavily into is we want applicants to have the necessary experience to ensure that the work we're putting in to create that affordable farmland access opportunity continues on into the future as a successful enterprise in our community. We need the applicant to offer evidence of financial readiness to purchase the farm property within a yet to be determined time frame from entering a sales contract with the city. The city will most certainly try to work with the selected buyer to provide reasonable sales contract terms that meet the needs of the selected buyer's financial needs or financing needs. So we understand that the financing necessary or secured by the selected buyer could not necessarily come from a commercial loan. It may be a private loan, it may be a groundswell crowdsource funding, but we need the applicant to describe their financial readiness and their plan for that. And then we will try to adjust our sales contract to meet the needs of that financing approach. But as it states in our buy, protect, sell policy, we will not and cannot provide financing, lease to own, or land contracts to the selected buyer. Essentially, the city will not finance their purchase of the property. All we will do is facilitate the out sale at the fixed price, but we will not be a lender or take on a lending role. The applicant must be willing to work with the city on a closing timeline not to exceed 1 year from the sales contract. So this is an acknowledgement right out the gate when the applicant looks at the RFP that this sale will not happen 2 weeks after selection. It may take upwards of a year for us to finalize all the details associated with the out sale. So they need to be willing to wait up to a year for that out sale to take place. And then, of course, fundamental to our work, the applicant would have to, of course, agree to the basic terms of our city template conservation easement that would encumber the property. Any questions?
I'm sort of wondering why you have number 2 as high as you do. You know, number 1, 250,000 is the gross farm income, and you're saying then taxable income would be 3 times the median household income. That seems rather high to me.
I believe.
Go ahead, Remy.
No, go ahead, Rosie.
So one of the things we had in here before was couldn't exceed adjusted gross income of $900,000, which was NRCS limit. So this was at least moving down from that. And I recognize that was gross again, and this is net really. We're trying to be, it does seem high. We're also trying to be inclusive and flexible, and also recognizing that although we're targeting land insecure and small farmers, it still costs a bit of money to buy land and then to make it profitable, which is sort of one of our priorities, I think, at this point, is to ensure the success of the buyer. And there's room to build a house, like that costs money too. And thinking about twice the median income might not even make it there. And also trying to be inclusive of different kinds of purchasing arrangements.
And of course, in this case, this is the ceiling, not the floor. Mm-hmm. So an applicant wouldn't be able to go over this amount, but could make less than this amount. So it's not the expectation that this is the average for applicants, but it is the ceiling. Councilmember Radina?
Thanks. I noticed in number 3 that it looks like that's a reduction by about half from what was in the criteria in the homework that we were given. Is there a reason for that beyond just trying to target specifically smaller entities, or was there a different reason for that shift?
It was about trying to target smaller entities. We received some feedback that even 50 was kind of high, like unrealistic to the business. We'd pulled 50 from healthcare.gov's definition of a small business, just to kind of start somewhere. And that was on the smaller end of small business, because other government agencies define it as 250 or even 1,500. So, but 50 just kind of isn't realistic. I guess even 25 people in a co-op or 25 people, full-time people pulling together to operate a small farm is probably way too high, way too unrealistic. So this just helps keep it small. Yes.
I would add that I think there's potential for it to be smaller, but not necessarily knowing who might come together and pull together a community enterprise of sorts. It felt within a range of, given that the buy, protect, sell work and the parcels that we would likely be targeting with this work are going to trend toward the smaller acreage overall. We probably won't see an LLC with 25 plus members seeking that small of a property to, realize their great farm plan, their business plan. It would probably take a group that size to make it a worthwhile endeavor for them. A bit more acreage, that you start to think more toward commodity farming, less toward local food. So 25 is higher than I think we'll ever see. And again, that's the ceiling, not the floor.
Jason?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions or just notes. Generally speaking, I like that you've built in some flexibility with this within reason. These are limitations or limits, height limits, but not necessarily targets. And as we don't really know how this is going to go yet, building yourselves in some flexibility for seeing how things go, it is easier to constrain later or to constrain applications that come in, as opposed to eliminating applications from even happening because the criteria is too restrictive. So I applaud you on that. Number two, my question on that, what wasn't a question, actually, I think that's a good number for the same reason of my first comment, which is there are many different folks who are coming into farming from different directions. And maybe you've got a dual income family or something where one of the people wants to begin to take a hobby into a real career or into a real business, but they've got someone else who is, in their taxable income or something, who makes that harder to qualify. So as a cap, I like that. I was curious about number 6 on the 1-year timeline. As so many of our projects exceed 1 year, do we have a good indication from the city, especially the attorney's office, that 1 year or less is a realistic target for some of these projects?
Rosie, I'm happy to take that one.
Sure.
So the key here with this transaction model is that the funding was already figured out up front. We've purchased the parcel, and now we're not waiting for an application for grant funding. We're not waiting for federal approval on a project and its review process. We've already done our due diligence, the phase 1, the survey, etc. We do have additional due diligence that we need to get to the point for the actual issuing of the RFP. Some information around site suitability or building potential with perk tests, etc. There's some due diligence items, but nothing to the degree to which we've already done in purchasing the property. So we've cut out a lot of the timeline, the normal acquisition timeline already. This will need, basically, it leaves us a year for negotiating the finer tuned terms of the conservation easement, and then having that reviewed and approved by our only funding partner in this case, which is Washtenaw County, which is far more nimble than the federal government. So we're encouraged by that limited partnership to allow us the flexibility to expedite something. It's crazy to call 1 year and expediting anything, but as you all know, 1 year compared to 36 months to closing is what we're looking at here. So it is expedited.
Good, thanks for clarifying that. And I should have already realized that, because this is from RFP consideration to closing, not the consideration for what properties might be part of the whole process. So I was in my brain attaching the entire process to 1 year or less, not the.
That would be a feat.
It's doable. But I've been wrong before. Anyone else?
I'm going to raise my hand. Hopefully Jason will be able to rejoin us. As I say this, I'm wondering if it's if you've already made the decision that it belongs in the scoring side of things. But when I look over the list, which I'll second what Jason said about really good specificity and extent of eligibility while retaining that flexibility, has to do with the geographic location of the interested party. And did you consider whether that would be a factor for eligibility, is that they are based in a certain geography?
You may have been the one that cared about that the most from people's responses. No, this is open where we considered it. We talked about that, like, Michigan based or economic region based or Midwest based, in terms of like what would make a successful applicant would be someone who would know what grows here better than someone who is from Louisiana, was Remy's example. But I think those kinds of things would play itself out within the scoring rather than the eligibility. And if we get someone, really well trained from Texas, does it matter so much if they apply?
And I think
we would welcome them. Good.
To Jason's point, setting the very first RFP's eligibility criteria at a level where we're casting a wider net than a smaller is good as we're learning, and then GAC will always know, and council will always know that should things evolve and feedback come in through the community based on the outcomes of this first or second or third buy, protect, sell process, RFP, outsale success stories. If folks want to narrow in the criteria, we can. But for now, living in the criteria instead of the eligibility, or the scoring instead of the eligibility, seemed most applicable this first go around.
Great, thanks. Are there any other comments or questions for Remy and Rosie?
Excellent. Next slide.
Okay.
Take it away.
Yeah, great. Okay, so all right, how to start this. Okay, so here are the categories that I sent you all in the Excel spreadsheet, and we have based on your feedback and based on our redevelopment of some of those eligibility criteria, these have been altered and ranked based on your feedback. So what has happened here, so there are some that have been removed essentially. So we're keeping ag experience and plan alignment, farm business experience, farm plan, the basic stuff. The need for land has essentially moved to eligibility. That's the land insecure idea. Keeping relationship to Greenbelt area to some extent there. Beginning farmer has been eliminated, and I want to talk about that. That was never really a category in the original one. I put it in the original guidance. I put it in there to see what you all thought about that, essentially. So Remy was talking about the definitions of land insecure and small farmer. So land insecure, not owning any land. Small farmer, less than 250,000 gross farm income. Beginning farmer is 1 to 10 years of experience. So it's a very valuable category. And beginning farmers are very much still eligible for this and can be supported by this buy, protect, sell endeavor. But we're just narrowing it to this other stuff instead, small and land insecure. We didn't want to be a farm incubator. We didn't want to get stuck in that role, and neither do we have the resources right now to be that role. So this is being eliminated in the way that it will be, if you're a beginning farmer, that qualification, that identity is not going to be prioritized in the scoring. Instead, the farm business experience will prioritize people with 10 plus years of experience will be the top amount of points. And then it will go down from there. So it's not about helping beginning farmers. They can still be supported by this, but it's not prioritizing them as a group. Just to be clear on that. And then financial need, just sort of adjusted the eligibility to kind of talk about financial need instead. That's the median income cap. If we were trying to prioritize people that didn't have a lot of money, we're not really offering them a solution to that with any sort of partnerships with micro loans or our own loans. So it wasn't really helpful. but we've at least removed from eligibility millionaires. So theoretically. So similar to what Remy did with the eligibility criteria, I'm going to let you sit here now with these scoring criteria for a minute, the selection criteria. So there are 4 remaining, and they are listed here in terms of sort of your averages for what was most important among you. You all had very different thoughts about this, which I think was good. It reflected that, well, our own sort of Remy and Mai's back and forth on what was best for this. And like, it all seems really amazing when you're just kind of excited about it. And then when we drilled into the details, we all had slightly different ideas about what was going to make this successful. So everyone's input on that was really valuable, and everyone sort of valued slightly different things. But there was some pretty good agreement that what was in the farm plan itself that they submitted, which is the main part of the proposal anyway, would be the most important, would receive the most points. And then these other ones follow that. So to talk through these, I've also adjusted the definitions a little bit here. So a farm plan is going to, there was some concern about, and there has been for a while, how we have the experienced GAC and staff to evaluate like the suitability of the plan for that particular property, for the soil, for the topography, etc. So we're going to stick with, I think, more about what we know best, I think. So so these points will assess like how much of the requested info did they actually provide within the RFP. And then, so that would receive the most points. Sorry. So the way this is structured, each bullet point here is the example of what would receive points, top points, essentially. So a proposal was submitted with 100% of everything that we asked for. Then we can use this to be kind of at our discretion. Plan generally aligns with site conditions. They decided that they're going to grow alfalfa and not peach trees. So, plan aligns with sustainability and greenbelt objectives. We know about that. We can award points for that, and plan includes local markets, and we can still build out some of those. Plan includes food. Oh, another one was plan includes food and fiber for human consumption. So these types of things would get the most points in farm plan. And farm plan itself would have the most points out of all 4 of these. Okay. Ag experience and plan alignment. The duration and oh, I'm sorry, Sheila, you had a question on the first one?
I don't know if you want to go one by one, and sorry, every time I turn my video on, everything crashes. So hopefully this works. I had a question on the first one in terms of that plan generally aligns with site conditions. And I had put it in my notes too of our ability to judge that is somewhat biased by what we've seen grown in this area already. And I would worry about sort of novel approaches being shot down or anything that, well, that wouldn't work. But if they have the ag experience, then they should know or have some sense of, if they've been given, I don't know, are they given like soil tests? Or do they know what the soil value is? I just think it's really hard to judge that whole, other than in impossible, crazy situations, to judge whether what they're proposing by our commission, but if what they're proposing is okay or not. And I don't want it to be biased towards, well, we've never had that done in Michigan before, so we shouldn't do it, where it could be this really cool, innovative, progressive thing to do.
Point well taken. I think we have some experience on this we have some farming experience on this Greenbelt Advisory Commission, so that will help. I think that in the idea of a novel proposal, we would evaluate that alignment with site conditions based on their argument for it. So if they make the case of why it would work, and we believe that, then we can give those points. If they are bad at that, then they don't get the points. That's how I would see that. Is that reasonable? Or
So their ability to show that they know what they're doing, as opposed to our ability to judge that they know what they're doing.
that would definitely be some of it, yes.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's worth mentioning is if you look at the buy, protect, sell timelines for buy and sell, the buy timeline, Rosie and I will continue to do our best, but around the time that we issue the RFP, Rosie and I should have had the opportunity by that point to engage with other community stakeholders that might be interested in participating in this program, supporting it, amplifying its message, sharing the RFP, et cetera. And through that process, I really do hope that we make connections to specific content experts and individuals that you all have the voting power, recommendation power that then goes to city council as voting power. But your deliberations, we can invite external parties to supplement our deliberations and feed into the recommendation process around which proposal to select. So we used to have a really valuable partner with MSU Extension locally that we relied heavily on for exactly these types of questions and criteria and the true expertise that we need at the table. We've lost that partner, but we can likely find one or two more that we could actively engage and try to bring into the fold of your all's discussion about specific proposals when that day comes.
I think that if that's an issue that the applicant should be able to point to people in that industry that would substantiate that this is a viable business on this property. I mean, I think that should be a part of their business plan.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Councilmember Rodina.
Thanks. And feel free to tell me if I should hold this, because this kind of goes back to the previous slide also as part of this one, but I know we're kind of going through the criteria. I am someone who, when I was going through this, rated the beginning small farmer experience pretty high. And I rated the plan portions relatively high, but the experience portions kind of in the middle. And the reason I did that was kind of trying to think about this criteria through more of an equity lens as well. And I want to make sure we're not losing that piece, because I think looking at kind of the current demographics of farmers in the United States, we're looking at like an overwhelmingly 95+% white demographic. And so when we're limited, I guess, to bring in new farmers who may represent BIPOC communities or things like that, by heavily putting more heavy influence on long-term experience and not weighting any type of points towards providing someone that opportunity to start out new but have a really strong plan, I worry that maybe we're contributing to that ongoing problem. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit about kind of the thought process behind eliminating that beginning criteria and how we might continue to keep kind of an equity focus in some of this.
Yeah, it's a great question. It ties back to, as Jason mentioned, the inclusion of, specific terms like reasonable around the financing accommodations that the city will make in our sales contract and the timing around that. We acknowledge that some people are going to have different access to financial support to secure the down payment for this purchase, or will not operate within institutional norms that have been discriminatory in the past. And so we want to keep the eligibility for that financial component broad, but the equity objectives or the equity values are in, as you can see here with the scoring criteria, are in, I'm not in conflict, but they're within the mix of the other, sustainability objectives, et cetera, that we're bringing into the fold of the full consideration. So I think it's probably really going to, this is listed in the order that as a group, how everybody collectively prioritized this. But what it's really going to amount to, or really boil down to, is the weights given when that time comes. So I wouldn't necessarily say that farm plan will be given the most weights. We just wanted to communicate in this slide that amongst all of you today, the feedback was trending toward farm plan being the most important piece that you all felt should be evaluated. But the next slide and into next steps will cover that. Rosie and I are going to be then building out the actual measurements for what this means, and then the weights associated with those measurements. So that's going to be where we need to be really conscious of that equity lens and applying weights appropriately. But they are in competition with the other values that the program has long stated through the strategic plan, which is water quality, local food production, et cetera. It's not that one applicant can cover them all. And hopefully, new and beginning farmers will have the ability through this scoring system to still make a very strong and competitive case for themselves.
And I would also say, I think I ranked farm plan as my highest too, because I think if we're looking towards wanting the folks that are being selected to be successful, I do think having a strong plan is important. And I think my concern is maybe a little bit more on 2 and 3 having pretty strong ties to like that longevity of experience and how that might impact.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the weights there, with us taking careful review of a farm plan and assigning maybe greater weight to it, that we can address some of the equity issues that then would potentially provide an applicant a lower score in the second 2 categories.
Can I add more?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the weeds. The second category, ag experience and plan alignment, that doesn't necessarily deprioritize people with low experience. The way that is currently set up is you could have 1 year of managerial responsibilities, and if that 1 year accounted for your entire farm plan, like the entire type of agriculture that you're proposing, like it matches exactly, you would get the highest points there. So they would only get dinged on farm business experience. So it's not compounding in that way. That was one thing I wanted to say. We're also really trying to pay attention to the equity in other aspects. So reducing barriers elsewhere by primarily making the RFP itself as accessible and trustworthy as possible by like this, all this writing looks like a lot and complicated right now. I'm hoping to make it as streamlined as possible when it's actually in the RFP, and to do things like very clearly lay out what we want the farm plan to say, not have someone build it entirely from scratch unless they want to. Provide examples, offer resources for help. Not that is not us, but other organizations. If you need help with this, see these people, as well as to push through appropriate or advertise this RFP through the right networks to encourage racially diverse people to apply.
And another key component that's long been discussed, it goes back to the original creation of the template RFP. In the template RFP, there was, I recall correctly, a section that talked about a third party, an independent third party that could help advise any applicant in developing these materials.
Oh,
sorry, I was muted.
that was my bad. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll keep it short then. So we lost that specific third party support system to help potential applicants develop an RFP. But we will continue to look for another third party in the community that we could tap and meet with to help them thoroughly understand what it is we're asking for and how to address each question. So make the RFP as accessible as possible, but also provide a connection to another entity or individual that can help support each applicant's development, so that it's not Rosie or I or any of you fielding the individual questions from applicants and, you know, being perceived as any impropriety about how to craft a more competitive application.
I recognized immediately that you cared about equity. When I was looking at everyone's scores, I gave a one-word summary of what everyone cared about, and yours was equity. Super obvious.
And
Kate. Oh, yeah.
Please, everyone, don't let us lose sight of that objective. It is hard to balance with all the other objectives at hand, but please continue to push so that there's a clear acknowledgement of that built into this system out the gate, because this is the first RFP. We want this to go well. We want this to serve as a truly firm basis for developing future RFPs. So we want to get it right this time. So as much critique as you want to throw our way, please do, because we need to get it aired out and addressed right now. No better time than now.
So I think Rosie, you called on me there. Following up on those points, I had a question about, so I also ranked Farm Plan as the highest for the whole host of reasons we've been talking about. But I'm also somebody who ranked these numbers 2 and 3 a little bit lower for the reasons that Councilmember Radina brought up. I was a little curious if you could talk more about the downvoting of the demonstrated need for farmland criteria. So I can see the point about the beginning or small farmer, right? That this program isn't meant to be, a startup or incubator based, focused program. But the demonstrated need for farmland criteria really seem to meet that, providing affordable farmland opportunities to folks in the community, like that goal of the work, and also get a little bit more at that equity piece. So I was curious why that was no longer included in what you have here.
It's no longer included because it became part of the eligibility instead of part of the scoring. So to apply at all, you have to not own farmland or otherwise demonstrate land insecurity. Or you can be a small farmer and own land technically. So so there are two, possible groups that you can fall into there, and one of them could involve already owning land. So but just not making very much money. So if we think that we should bring that back in and prioritize one of those groups over the other, that's a reasonable piece of feedback.
I think that thanks for that explanation, Rosie. I think that the balance that you have here now, I think that it works in trying to strike that balance. I am curious, I don't know that we'll know this until the first, set of proposals come in, but if that eligibility criteria will run up against these the scoring criteria of numbers 2 and 3 specifically, if it might be interesting to see if we get proposals from folks who, to meet that eligibility criteria, haven't been able to own land and demonstrate the business experience and the ag experience, even if they do have a really competitive farm plan. So I don't know, though, if we'll be able to know that until the first round goes through.
We have some of that information. I mean, yeah, we'll see how many people really fit this category around here, but we did, this project was partially started in response to, or at least highly informed by a survey that was done by MSU Extension, by this third party that Remy keeps mentioning. That was a survey of Washtenaw County farmers. And the biggest need that came out of that were these people that had been farming for a long time, but still didn't own land because land was too expensive. So we have identified this need that that survey didn't capture how long they'd been farming, but we know of people that have been farming for a long time and are just renting and have been renting. So we know that need is there. How many it really is, don't know necessarily, but they do exist.
Yeah, Kate, something we consistently have mentioned through this process is that survey went out to a list of, I think it's 150 plus land insecure farmers in Southeast Michigan looking to find their affordable farmland purchasing opportunity. It did not, unfortunately, cover data about gross farm income, so that we weren't able to then bring that into the fold here and adjust criteria based on that. But it did give us information about what approximate size farm these land seekers or these land insecure farmers are looking for and feel that they need to be successful, the proximity to the markets, and then what are their primary barriers to access. So knowing what land is available, this addresses that because we're telling them this parcel is available. Having it be affordable, this addresses that because we've removed the development rights from the purchase price. So we may drop the value of the land by as much as 50% or more. Trying to think of the other. Oh, and it addressed that the overwhelming goal of those that participated in the survey was not long-term lease scenarios, but was ownership. And this addresses, we're not purchasing, as the Greenbelt, we're not purchasing farms and then establishing long-term lease agreements with producers. Not that that's out of the question, but within the community that was surveyed that we're aware of in Southeast Michigan, the overwhelming response was we want ownership.
Thanks. That's really good context.
Sheila.
Thanks. I just love that we're having this conversation even in the Greenbelt Advisory Commission. So the issue of equity and of farmers without a lot of experience, I think brings me back to why I was stuck on this. The plan generally aligns with site conditions and how do we judge that? This question of innovation. So we don't want to be an incubator, but maybe we want to allow some level of innovation in terms of diverse. I guess I equate equity and diversity of approaches and diversity of crops that they might want to plant. And I realize that what I'm stuck on is not completely knowing. We do want them to be successful, obviously, for the program to be successful. What happens if they're not successful? So how does the buy, protect, sell program work in terms of you've sold it to them, they own it, the easement is still on it. So what's the risk of lack of success is I guess what I'm trying to understand here so that we can better understand what is the risk of being an incubator or innovation or not having a lot of experience.
We've been trying to avoid talking about that with you, actually.
No. I
until we worked out more of it.
I'm so ready to talk about this, but I just the basis of.
Rosie does not want Remy to talk about
it. All right. See ya.
That was very Freudian.
Sorry. the basis of any response is that it's all TBD. And we're working on those questions. So there's a few elements that I can cover hopefully quickly. We all need to acknowledge that the primary objective of the City of Ann Arbor's Greenbelt program is resource conservation. When we do a buy, protect, sell transaction and it goes to a farmer and they fail, we've still succeeded because the property is conserved in perpetuity and it remains technically by appraised value affordable into the future because those development rights have been removed. We are still completing our primary objective as a program. We are operating in a buy, protect, sell, I don't know, call it renaissance in America. This framework is popping up all over now because people are seeing the potential to move beyond resource conservation and into these other objectives. But they're all, trust me, everyone's asking the same question of how do we guarantee the benefit beyond conservation beyond the first transaction. There are programs in the East Coast where, conservation easement acquisition has a much longer history and depth of expertise at play, where they have legal tools in place to continue their interest beyond the conservation easement, but actually in acquiring the title of the property again and again and again and again, and facilitating these RFPs again and again and again. It's legally possible. Bringing that here to the City of Ann Arbor, to this effort, to this transaction model is being thoroughly vetted. What it looks like could be an option agreement for a term. It could be a right of first refusal. But again, there's a rule against perpetuities in real estate, and we need to work within those bounds, within state law, federal, et cetera. So we're digging into each corner of the space to see how could we guarantee the most benefit from this transactional model into the future beyond the first transaction. We are asking that question. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I don't know if we will have it all perfectly ready for this first acquisition. We may, in this first acquisition, execute at closing an option for the city to have a perpetual, an assignable option where, let's say, the business fails within 2 years and we've secured the right to purchase it at appraised value plus 3% inflation. We step in again and we purchase the farm, or rather, we would have to assign the option to another agency like Washtenaw County or the township or a partner nonprofit agency to hold title, because we can't hold title then to property that we have a conservation easement on. We can't be our own police for any time. That's not okay with easements, conservation easements. So again, all those things need to be figured out so that we're doing it legally, effectively, et cetera. But it's a great point. We assumed someone was going to ask us at some point. Kudos. And we have partners in the country that we're talking to who are developing those option agreements, that language, that specific retaining of interest that could continue the benefits of the program into the future beyond just conservation.
But the fact that you've answered with it's still success means we can have some leeway around risk, I guess is what I'm saying.
And, not just that, but I'm darn proud of the risk that you all are recommending and that City Council is willing to go down this road to at least explore utilizing our resources and our staff expertise and the city's vision for success in this way. Sheila, you said it. It's amazing that the Greenbelt Advisory Commission is having this discussion right now. We were not here a year or two, well, maybe a year or two, 3 or 4 years ago. Buy, Protect, Sell has been going on for quite some time in small pockets. It's really starting to bubble up into the mainstream in land conservation programming. But everyone at that same time is trying to figure it out and how to utilize it the best. I will say that we were, again, as I have before, I can almost guarantee you're going to be the only city in the United States utilizing Buy, Protect, Sell acquisition frameworks for land conservation. The city putting money into this is truly unique on a national scale. When we talked about it with colleagues that we met in Maryland, when Rosie and I went to the American Farmland Trust Summit and mentioned that we were doing this work, I mean, people are staggered by this. You all should be really proud that we're at least trying to figure out this very difficult thing. So if it results in resource conservation and the farmer fails and someone wants to call it a failure on our part, I'm happy to pick up the phone and have that conversation about how in no way is it a failure. It is a testament to our willingness to innovate. Now mute me.
I'm sorry. I think I never realized like the power of being able to mute everybody. But I think I just keep seeing Remy and thinking Rosie. Well, sorry.
Any more questions on this slide?
Yeah, I didn't even go over the last two, but I'm sure you've read it by now.
All right.
Wait, Elizabeth. Did you have something?
It looks like Dee's hand is up.
Oh, thank you.
Dee.
Amazing, right? So I think what I realized that as I filled out that application, and this is all a process and it's new to all of us. And I wrote Rosie right at the beginning of the meeting. I said, I've already changed my mind. I thought about it and I want to change my mind again. So I appreciate all of this discussion and thank you very much. And, we might change our mind a lot, but it's firming up, I have to say, and I appreciate the guidance and the thoughtful questions. And that's all I wanted to say.
I was thinking too how what our responses would be like if we had done the scoring exercise and then had a presentation, right? Had this conversation and then did it again. It'd be interesting to see because I know I was digging back into my memory of some of this information about the program. But thank you very much for including us.
We could also something that we didn't offer throughout the initial planning stages around Buy, Protect, Sell, when I shared the template RFP and just that rough sketch of what the criteria might include. One thing I didn't do was share example criteria documents from other agencies. If you want to see some of those, we can send examples of what other groups are using specifically on file. I think we have one from Maine and one from Vermont for what their land access programming looks like. What you have to keep in mind, though, is that anytime the criteria is coming from a nonprofit, they are within their legal rights to sell it to whoever they want to for any reason. We, as a municipality, are going through a much deeper, more robust process to develop this criteria because this is a public process. So keep that in mind if you do see those criteria, weights, et cetera, if you want to see them from other agencies.
Thanks for the offer. Are there any takers? Oh,
yeah, Councilmember Rodina.
Thanks again. How often? I mean, if we come to a consensus here, how often do we plan to evaluate this criteria and determine if it is still the working criteria for us or if we need to make adjustments to it?
In our mind, every single RFP for a buy, protect, sell parcel needs to cross you all first for a recommendation. We probably wouldn't go through another process of quite like this, but the actual, Rosie and I prepare the RFP, send it to you for comments. That's when, we can start to get feedback about, actually, I think this weight should be adjusted like this. And if we get enough of that, then I think we need to have a whole revisiting of just the eligibility and scoring criteria. But this is just one component of the larger RFP content that is going to be going to you for recommendation to City Council to then issue.
I don't know if that hand for D is an old hand. Okay, I guess so. Rosie and Remy, are there additional slides or content that you wanted to? Okay, there we go.
So here's the next steps. What you just saw were the categories, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of what the criteria would be, but now it's time to apply what are the measures for that, and what are the weights associated with those measures. So that's what we will be working on, and then we will be sending you a draft by April 21st. You'll then have time to provide feedback. And if we see that there isn't a lot of deviation from the measurements and weights that were chosen, and there's general consensus and support, then we're just going to go ahead and incorporate this eligibility and scoring criteria into the draft RFP document, and then spend all of May building out the rest of the RFP content. But if there's not consensus on the draft eligibility and scoring criteria weights and measurements, we'll go ahead and call a May meeting so that we can meet and discuss and hear the questions and the opinions at play of what might need to change. But the ultimate goal is that either we convene now and go through that process via email and have your feedback and incorporate it, or we meet in May, but by May 26th, we have sent you a draft Maisel parcel RFP for review, and then hopefully you approve and recommend that RFP at your June 1st meeting, and we would issue it publicly in late June. Any questions on those next steps? I appreciate your input and critical thinking on what is undoubtedly an imperfect process, because it is an evolutionary process, and it will continue to be so. But as long as you understand that the innovation is worth the risk and we are still fulfilling our program objective of resource conservation, I think we're all on the right track.
Thank you for walking us through that and providing the updates, and also just well done to Rosie and Remy on keeping this moving forward, because it's a fairly aggressive timeline for this year, and it'll be a balance of getting input from this group and addressing any concerns or considering suggestions, and still keeping an eye on the goal of being able to have an RFP out for the Maisel property. Are we ready to move on to 6E, the virtual in-person meetings, which is, I think, our last item for new business before we go into closed session?
That's right. Okay, there are two questions at hand here. Elizabeth, jump in for our conversation if you want at any time here. There was some talk at the last meeting about some sort of wish to meet in person. Wasn't super clear if that was all the time or we just want to get together and reconnect and basically that, maybe do a field trip. Question, there are two questions here. So the first one is, I think, wanting to do a vote on if you want to keep meeting virtually as a standard, just to check. I had a committee that wanted to return to in person, so they did. You never know. So do you want to just do a vote on that real quick? And then the other option is just like a straw man vote or whatever, not a formal vote. The other option is we can just get together sometime this summer, have one meeting in person, maybe followed by like a site visit or something like that, a carrot for meeting in person and just meeting everybody. So I wasn't entirely sure what the desire was. Were there people that wanted to start meeting in person regularly? Or Travis?
Rosie,
yes.
if I could just add to that.
Oh, please.
If I recall correctly, some of the context was recognizing that we had a number of commissioners join during lockdown time. And so not having an opportunity to actually meet in person, I think was where that was primarily coming from. I hope others will help me if that's incorrect. But just looking for an opportunity to see each other in person from time to time. But I see there are some hands.
This is more of a question to my my staff friends here on the call. Has City Council allowed for meetings to choose to be back in person yet? I am not asking this to influence the outcome because I'm genuinely interested in hearing. I know that I have another commission that wants to do that, but I think we were of the understanding that only statutorily required committees to meet in person should meet in person. So we may need to check on that. It may be something that we need council to address, because I do think we're kind of to a point now where folks are comfortable returning to in-person if that's the desire.
I wasn't aware that it might have been a mandate. I thought it was just an allowance.
Yeah, I thought
I will look at it.
Yeah, I thought TAC just had this conversation last meeting and that they were planning to meet in person for their next meeting. Maybe I have that wrong. I would appreciate clarity on that, and I will ask the clerk's office too.
So can I speak? I think I was the one that brought this up for the very reason you talked about, being new people, about how, like, I it would be an important thing to me, but let me say, it doesn't have to be all the time. I'm fine with, alternating or something, or maybe after I meet you all in person, I won't want to meet with you. So which I think is hard to believe based upon my experience, but and I also have convinced myself that, because the response I got was, oh no, we can't do that. So it's sort of how it felt like, oh, there are a lot of people here that won't go along with that. So, and what I would say is, okay, I got a plan B, so don't worry about it. So, I mean, unfortunately, it will require that I meet individually with each and every one of you, and I can do that on my own. So go for it, or something, or we'll go birding together. I don't know. Anybody want to go, right? So it's a good time of year. So, or I'll go visit, so that was my thing. I really, I love three-dimensional people. I really do. So, but I understand all the things that tug on us and make it hard to come in person. So I get it.
I'll start with if everyone could virtually raise your hand if you are comfortable considering a May or June in-person meeting, should it be permitted.
Just one meeting, not.
And the
Not
question
returning
is,
to-
will consider, not commit to, right?
Yes. Raise your two-dimensional hands.
I also love the idea of a site visit that includes carrots and birds. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we could find a farm that we could do both.
Well, I think we're primed for a double Maisel site visit and birding experience where we visit the Maisel by Protect Cell parcel and then go on over to the 220 acre public nature preserve owned and operated by Washtenaw County that we contributed the lion's share of the funding toward, that has a heron rookery, and that might be a nice alternative if we find out that we're not able to actually convene as a commission in person.
Did you get the hands when they were all up, or?
I think I saw a majority.
Okay.
Please reach out to me.
Maybe more importantly, and not to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone has a really strong objection or reason why they could not meet in person that they want to share with Remy or Rosie after, I think that's also important, so that we're not, if somebody has a medical reason or another reason why they couldn't, I don't want to put them on the spot right now.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Give us a call.
I think meeting virtually regularly has been great for everybody, or most people, in terms of flexibility and accessible spaces as well. So we'll continue doing that regularly unless there is a strong objection to that.
That's fine.
And we'll plan one day in the summer to have an in-person meeting, hopefully, and some sort of site visit. Great.
Thank you. Okay, then I believe that is everything on new business on the agenda. So up next is number 7, next agenda items. Does anyone have items for next meeting's agenda? I imagine we'll have a Buy Protect Sell update, right?
Yes. And Juliet proposed a few changes to the agenda format. If we don't have any old business, that won't show up on the agenda anymore. And we will have on there, we will remove communications because we don't really utilize that. Or is that, or maybe these changes have already happened. I forgot to look at the agenda. So thank you, Juliet.
Looks like it. Yeah.
They're already done. Okay. Talking about them anyway. And there will now be report from commissioners, if just as an opportunity for you all to mention something cool or talk about something important to the commission that you'd like to say.
Well, it looks like that item is number 10 on today's agenda. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Yes, I did make the changes there for this agenda, so it's something we can continue editing if need be.
Thanks, Juliet.
Okay. There aren't any other next items for the next agenda. Then we are going to be moving into closed session to discuss land acquisition. And
we don't have any items.
Oh,
for
we
closed
don't.
session. No.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that. Okay, so we will move along then to public commentary, where we allow 5 minutes maximum speaking time. Is there anybody who is waiting to address the commission?
We have no speakers.
Okay, thank you. And then the new agenda item, reports from commission members, which I think Rosie just said, if there's anything interesting and I would imagine relevant to the Greenbelt program. This is an opportunity to share that. Give folks a moment to think about if there's anything timely that they'd like to share. Well, that'll give us something to think about for the next meeting. If we'll have anything for that agenda item. And then if there's nothing from the commission members, then we are ready to adjourn. So does someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.